What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. Make sure to visit podcastformarketers.com. Smash that like button if you like the video and fucking subscribe to this channel because I'm coming out with videos every day. Now let's get down to business. All right, guys. So today is MailBag Monday. I'm writing like shit right now. All right. So the first question I have is superpower. What if you don't have one? This is a question. Like, and I kind of struggle with this myself. Like, what is my superpower? What is it I can do? When I was younger, I was like 7 years old, right? 7 or 8 years old. My stepfather told me that I was a great communicator, right? And I never understood this. Like, how the fuck did he know when I was just 7? He's like, man, you and your mother can, communicate really well. And, well, it's true, clearly, but how did he see that when I was 7 years old? It's like, fuck, and I used to probably come home and tell him all kind of stories when from school, what happened at school or some shit. Maybe that was it. Maybe, because I don't remember, but maybe, I was just always telling lies and I was a good liar, so maybe I was telling lies or some shit, I used to get in trouble at school and shit, and I wouldn't want to, tell him what really happened, so I would make some shit up, whatever. Maybe that was why. And my mother used to tell me all the time, she says, I think you should be a preacher. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not me, right? But I kind of am now, right? I'm kind of like a preacher right now. Preaching the gospel of marketing to everybody, right? The good book, like, what is it? Breakthrough advertising, right? That's my Bible. So if you don't know what your superpower is, right? It's okay. And Russell Brunson, I was watching his master class, one of his master classes, and he said he was listening to Gary Vee. Now, this is a hell of a reference, right? From Russell Brunson to Gary Vee from me, right? But he was like, it's okay to be number 2. And everybody always wants to be number 1, right? I know I do. I want to be number 1. But I'm an A-type personality or whatever, and I found my superpower. My superpower is talking to you guys and getting you to work and getting you off your ass, right? I could talk to a whole bunch of people about different things, right? Because I have a lot of life experience. But, my shit is talking to you guys and teaching you what to do, right? Just being honest, right? Just kind of showing you the way that it's easy to do it, to make this money online. But if you don't have a superpower, my suggestion is that if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this video, then you're interested in marketing, okay? Enough to sit here and listen to me for 20 minutes or whatever it is, right? We're going to try to keep this video short today, but right, you're interested in marketing, right? So you can take that and couple it with a friend that's a good bass player. I always use that reference, right? But let's just say a bass player, right? Or a good friend that's Dr. Crack Your Back, right? Say you have a friend that's a chiropractor, but he's really not a good marketer and he doesn't want to be a good marketer, but you can get with him and start showing him how to be a great marketer, right? So coupling that with someone else would be a good idea because that's what you're passionate about, right? So getting a partner and doing something with that partner, right? So like to give you an example, John is my right-hand man, right? And he likes marketing, but he's not a good front man, is he? So he's kind of like behind the scenes. He's my number 2. Everybody needs that person. It's okay, to be that person. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has to have a role and a position to play. And once you recognize your role, if you think you don't have a superpower, but obviously your superpower would be loving advertising, internet marketing, or something like that. So just taking that and funneling that into a fruitful type of deal would be fine. But I think you have a superpower, you just don't know what it is, right? And I'm going to say this before I leave. I already have a video about this, but what would you do if you didn't have to go to work this morning? Or what would you do if you didn't have to take care of your kids, or if you had absolutely the whole day today, right now, to just do what the fuck you wanted to do, and you were already, don't say sleep, because that's not a superpower, but you're rested, you get up in the morning, where would you go? What would you do? Let's just say that you were, and this is a good way to find this, right? This is a good exercise if you can imagine this, right? So, that's my airplane right there, right? That's an airplane. Okay, that's an airplane, right? So jump on a flight, right? Right? It's an airplane.
I ain't riding in that joint.
You not riding in it? That's an airplane, man. So you're flying out, and let's just say you take a flight to Fiji, right? So, and this is a good way to find your superpower, right? Don't go with anybody else. Go alone, right? And fly to Fiji with nothing to do, right? Take 2 weeks to where you have absolutely nothing to do, right? Wake up in the morning in your little grass hut. Now, what do you want to do? That's a good way to find your superpower. What would you do if you just could get up and do anything, right? So, if you automatically say, fuck Fiji, I don't want to be on an island, well, automatically cross out doing anything like hiking or jogging or windsurfing or snorkeling or whatever, right? Cross out any water fucking activities or anything like that. And if you think that, flying to New York or flying to, Houston or flying to Paris would be a better look, right? Then when you get there, figure out what it is that you'd like to do, right? So anyways, that's a good way to figure out your superpower, right? And not doing it somewhere that you're familiar with is really cool, because there'd be some sightseeing involved, but other than that, you'd kind of like be left to your own devices to figure out what it is that you really like to do. When you wake up, like for me, if I wasn't working right now, if I didn't have absolutely anything to do, what is the very first thing that I do? My wife can tell you right now.
No fishing.
I'm grabbing a fishing pole. I'm out of here. Immediately. I remember, I'm telling you, it was just a few weeks ago. We were near a body of water and we had business to do, right? So I hurried up through the business, right? And while we were doing business, I broke out my fishing pole and told the guy, I'll get back with you in a minute, man. I was more concerned about fishing than the business that I had at hand, because I was too close to and I knew there was fish in there. I knew there were fish in there. I seen them rising and splashing around. I'm like, all right, I got to get my pole. I drive around with my fishing pole, right? I don't fuck around. It's important to me, right? So if I had absolutely nothing to do, what would I do, right? I would probably be on the back of somebody's sailboat or my own, right? In the ocean, fishing for mahi-mahi at this moment. It's the season for that, right? So depending on the season, would change my location, but it would not change the activity of actually fishing, right? So you need to kind of think about that and what it is that you're passionate about. The next question I had was how to tell a good story even when you suck. That was the exact question. Well, at storytelling. All right, so how do you tell a good story? I don't have to write a story out. All right. How do you tell a good story even when you suck, right? So I've been told that I can tell a good story here or there, and I mean, I don't believe it. I'm just a regular storyteller like anybody else. But the first thing I'm going to tell you to tell a good story is there needs to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's the first thing you need to understand about telling a good story. It needs to start off with once upon a fucking time, right? That's it. So, that's how you do your framework. What happened in the beginning, right? And usually in the beginning, now, here's where shit gets kind of hairy. Usually in the beginning, it starts off kind of slow, right? So in movies, it's the first act, the second act, and the third act, okay? The first act is a setup, okay? The second act is usually when conflict starts, okay? I'm giving you this really loosely because there's shit in between here that starts up too, because we set up the characters here. There's always a protagonist and a antagonist, right? So, yeah, I think that's the word. If I'm fucking the words up, then you guys correct me. But anyways, so you set up the characters and who they are and who's a superhero. Then there's some conflict. Now, this conflict is normally, and it's really simple, and I'm going to show you a really good story about that in a minute, right? So there's a conflict, and what happens is our hero wants something. And there's always a wall here. And this wall is a person or a physical object that gets in the way from what they want. All right? So remember that. There's always a hero, right? Or a person, right? What is it? The protagonist, I think it's called, right? So, what, anyways, the fucking dude, right? There's always somebody there that wants to go somewhere, or he wants something, and there's always a person or a natural, even something natural, or something physical, like an actual wall that's between him or her and what she or he or that person wants. Right, so if you think about that, and then in the third act, we break through. All right, so in love stories, what is this? We get to set up with the character, Romeo, right, and Juliet. What's their conflict? What do they want to do? They want to get married. And who's in the way? Family. Right? So we have to get past that. Unfortunately, we didn't get there with Romeo and Juliet. But you see the conflict there, right? What was in the way? Family. They wanted to get married, and there was the story right there. And they didn't get there, right? So if you look at any type of story, that's how it is. And that's the beginning, a middle, and an end. So you say, well, Sonny, I suck at telling stories, right? So the first thing I'm going to tell you to do is watch movies. Make that your homework and read fiction, right? But watching movies is really important. But when you watch the movies, number one, don't just watch the movie. Watch the movie. Pay attention to what's going on. So, don't go for entertainment. Go for actually studying what's happening with each character. I kind of destroy movies for my wife and I sometimes and we'll both do it. We'll just talk. Oh, well, here's the character. Well, here's what's going to happen next. Well, yeah, there's the antagonist. So this is what's going to happen. Just yesterday was my fun day, right? My wife did this right at the end of the movie. I didn't mind it. She called it because we kind of oh shit, you called that one, right? But it was a movie with Will Smith. It was awesome. I got actually a couple of lessons out of that movie. I'll tell you about that later. But anyways, the guy was it was a movie where Will Smith was playing a guy that his daughter had died, and he met this lady that also had a daughter that died, and she was running a group, right? Well, at the end of the movie, my wife goes, I bet you that's his wife. At the end of the fucking movie. She called it out, right? And sure enough, she had passed Will Smith a note that her husband had given her that said, I wish we were strangers again. So that should have been a hint on my side, right? But my wife caught it. She's super nosy like that. So anyways, so we tear movies apart that way, right? And she's a person that thinks that she can't tell good stories, right? But you can tell a good story when you're familiar with the story. Okay, so now here you go. Telling stories make money. If you want to know why, we're even talking about this. It's called story selling. And telling stories makes money, right? Faster than sales pitches make money. If you can tell a good story, right, of a hero fighting to get something like money or less pain or lose weight, blah, blah, blah. If you can tell that good story, right, and your prospect has an epiphany, I'm fucking butchering how to spell this, I'm going to try to spell it right, has an epiphany, right, this right here, right, all of a sudden he has a bright light, and that epiphany is your product, your solution, right? You just told him a story that sold him your shit, right? So telling stories are really important, right? And yeah, I do tell a fucking good story, man. I can tell a pretty good fucking story. So when I think about it. So being familiar with your story, and that doesn't have anything to do with memorizing your story, understanding the good structure of a story. And there's a dude called Michael Hague, I believe his name is Hauge, I think, right? GUE. Michael Hague, right? He's actually written some movies for Will Smith, and Will Smith wrote Hitch using this guy's framework, right? So look up Michael Hague and look up, I actually have books now, comic books. What I bought were how to write comic stories, right? And learning about comedy is good as well. Timing and shit like that. But don't get so fucking caught up in that. You can tell a good story when you're familiar with the story. So if you are at least 25, 30 years old, you have some type of life experience that you've been through, right? You're familiar with that story, and you know that it has a beginning, a first, second, and third act. Well, unless the shit's still going on right now, right? So you remember your story and then pick the lesson out. You pick the lesson out, right? And that's your pitch. So, to give you an example of a hero, I just told this story in my group, right? When I was 18 years old, I had my first kid, right? My ex already had 6 kids. That made 7. I was 18 years old and responsible for 7 children and still had to find a way to work my business, right? Because I was always having my own businesses, doing one thing or another. How did I find time to work on my business and still take care of 7 children, right? Something has to be more important than, going out to clubbing. I was 18 years old. What was more important? Well, my children were more important, right? Even though I wanted that time, my children were more important for me in order to take care of them at that particular time than going to the club or going to the movies or fucking doing what 18-year-old kids do, just going to have a good time, driving my car out, going to street races. Back then we had street races, right? Going to the street races or whatever the case may be. That was more important. My kids were my why at that moment. So instead of doing all these other things that I could be doing, now I just told you a fucking story, didn't I? Right? So that was a partial story about how I had 9 kids or 7 at that point. I ended up having twins, so we ended up with 9, right? But how did I do that, right? So I still had a beginning, a middle, and an end because I went to work, right? It was a really quick story, but I just took that and turned it into a business lesson, right? I mean, there's all kind of shit that I could tell about that story. I was 18 with fucking kids. What the fuck? I could turn that story all the way around into something else, right? But being familiar with the story and understanding what your end goal is, right? So you always want to start. And I hate when people say this, but it just makes sense, right? You want to start at the end and work backwards. I never understood why people say that all the time, right? But now I do, right? So you want to start at the end. What do you want your end result to be? What do you want to talk about, right? And work backwards, right? So I want to talk about working hard and having no excuse. Well, fuck, man. Dude, you had 9 kids and we're still able to work. That's a story that I'm familiar with, right? So let me just quickly set it up in my head. First, second, third act, because I know how it ended. It ended up with me making money, right? And so I had the kids. Let's set up the character. What was the struggle? Well, the fucking struggle was 9 kids every day trying to go make sure that they had to go to the doctor and they had to go to school every day, kindergarten, and washing all their clothes and feeding all of them, and just the whole dad, why is the sky blue shit, right? Every day there was something going on, right? So there's conflict there, right? And then the Child Protective Services came in one time and tried to take the kids away from us because we were fucking, broke and poor, and we had to go into welfare and all kind of shit, man. There's a story there. And those are the roadblocks. That's the wall between me and my cha-ching. What I really wanted, more time and freedom, right? That's a story there, and it's just experience that I have. You have an experience like that as well, right? There's something that stopped you. Did you have, meningitis when you were a kid, or did you have asthma and couldn't, work out, or you wanted to be a part of the basketball team and you had to beat asthma? You have a story that way. You had something that went on in your life that stopped you from doing something. Just take that story and tell it. And then once you're familiar with that story and how to tell that one story, you practice it over and over and over again, you can tell any kind of fucking story. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, man. Fuck, I put out videos every day. If you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe, right? Coffee break.